Hey everyone, it's Rachel here, and I want to do a video discussion about reading classics. Now recently I just finished reading a book with a buddy for a buddy read, and I read Pride and Prejudice with Mana over at The Thrifty Reader. I'm going to put her channel down below. If you somehow aren't subscribed to her, I please encourage you to go and check out her channel. She is a lovely reader with really diverse tastes in books, and has done some really fantastic video discussions on things like unlikable characters. I really enjoy her channel. I actually am only a recent subscriber because somehow I was creeping on her videos and didn't actually remember to click the subscribe button for quite some time. So definitely encourage you to check out her channel. She was a lot of fun to read with, and yeah, so do that. Anyway, I just wanted to come on here and basically do a follow-up video to that buddy read. However, I didn't want to do a traditional book review of this because honestly I know other people have reviewed this book better than I have, and it's a classic, it's so well known, I just didn't feel that BookTube needed my book review of it. So instead I wanted to come online and just do a bit of a discussion that kind of spins off my feelings towards reading this book. Because if you watched the original Friday Reads when I first talked about this book, I was very open in admitting that I was embarrassed to have not read this book. And honestly, I was very nervous about reading it because I was so terrified of not liking it. And people were fantastic in the comments saying things like, don't worry if you don't like it, just, read the books you read, don't apologize for your own reading taste, and all this positive feedback. And I really appreciate that. And I should say right off the bat that I did finish it. I did enjoy the book. I was surprised there's a lot more humor in the book than I realized there would be. I hadn't seen any adaptation, so I really didn't even know the plot going in. So basically what I wanted to do was just open up a discussion about your feelings on reading classics and whether or not you feel pressured to read classics. I do feel personally that with calling myself a reader, there is some sort of expectation of reading the really important big works of literature, and I do feel some pressure to read certain things that I wouldn't necessarily just read for fun, but I feel like it's part of maybe the larger package of reading for entertainment. And I do think there is definitely huge value in reading classics. One of the big ones is just honestly having an understanding of where these literary ideas and concepts and characters come from. For instance, now that I've read Pride and Prejudice, I'm happy to say I actually know who Mr. Darcy is. There's been so many places and adaptations and references to this Mr. Darcy, and I had no idea who he was. So I'm happy to say that I know who he is. And same thing, I like that I know who Gatsby is in The Great Gatsby. I like that when people talk about vampires that I've read Dracula and actually know which kind of ideas came from the original Bram Stoker story, and I really appreciate that I have that knowledge. I didn't necessarily always love reading those books, but I'm happy to have read them in retrospect. So I'm always saying thanks, past Rachel, for doing that work because now I've read them. But at the same time it's hard because while I really appreciated Pride and Prejudice, while there were definitely funny parts to it, I wasn't in love with the story. I didn't come home from work and said, oh my gosh, I just need to read another chapter before supper. I kind of plugged away at it. I read a couple chapters when I went to bed and when I had reading time, but I didn't get pulled into the story the way I do with something perhaps a little more modern, more to my nerdy tastes in books that I tend to kind of go to when I just pick whatever the heck I want to. Honestly, I could go back and forth and argue both sides of whether or not there should be pressure to read classics. I think there's great value in reading classics, but at the same time, I do think that I read for fun, and if someone's reading for fun as a hobby, there should be a lot of freedom to read whatever you want, because if you're doing it for enjoyment and not for work or for something external, then it really just should be what you enjoy. In my resolutions for this year, I did want to push myself to read books with more substance, as I said, and what that means is books with themes and maybe more literary ideas and perhaps more complex stories and not just lighter stories. But at the same time, those books don't necessarily have to be classics. There's a lot of fantastic, well-written books in all genres and time periods, and I want to give myself a little bit of freedom to explore not just the classics, but the whole span and spectrum of reading, because I still consider myself to be a fairly new reader. I haven't read hundreds and hundreds of books, so we'll see what I end up doing, but just really curious on your thoughts. I go back and forth between whether or not I should be reading classics or if I should just give myself a break, and I honestly don't necessarily have the answer yet. So curious what you're thinking. Hope everyone is having a really good day. I think I'm out of rambling thoughts, so I will let you go and watch a different video. You guys have a good one. I'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye.